April 12th, 1943. A cold morning inside a noisy plane factory in Long Island. Engines roared outside, rivet guns screamed. A young woman stood alone under a half-built bomber, holding a pencil. Her hands shook. Above her head, the clock was ticking. Somewhere overseas, pilots were already dying in planes exactly like this one. Then she drew a single line. The pencil dipped. It shouldn't have. That tiny dip revealed something terrifying. Sabotage. German spies had infiltrated American factories, and they were building death traps disguised as bombers. 18 planes, 180 men who would have died if she hadn't refused to stop. Her name was Beatrice Schilling, and they banned her pencil test. They called it paranoia. They said it slowed production. They ordered her to stop. She didn't. And that refusal to obey saved hundreds of American lives and exposed an enemy plot hiding in plain sight on American soil. This is the story of the woman who trusted a pencil more than her superiors, and the test they tried to bury until it was too late to ignore. Before we dive into how one woman's simple pencil line exposed enemy saboteurs inside American factories, if you're into untold World War II stories about real people who changed history in ways you never learned in school, hit that subscribe button right now. We uncover the hidden battles, the quiet heroes, and the moments that saved lives without firing a single shot. You won't want to miss what's coming next. The arsenal of democracy. Before the war, America believed its factories were untouchable, sacred ground. No bombs fell on New York. No shells hit Detroit. No enemy soldiers marched through Michigan. The Atlantic Ocean was a moat that kept the war safely overseas, where it belonged. American planes rolled out day and night. Workers came from everywhere, farms, shops, schools. Many had never built anything more complicated than a birdhouse before December 1941. Now they were building B-17 flying fortresses, B-24 liberators, fighters, bombers, transport planes. The demand was staggering. Hundreds of bombers every month, thousands every year. Production lines stretched across the nation from California to Connecticut, from Michigan to Texas. Speed mattered more than skill. Supervisors pushed numbers. Production quotas hung on every wall. Build it fast, build it now. Pilots are waiting. The Army Air Forces were confident, very confident. American industrial might was supposed to be unstoppable, the arsenal of democracy. Hitler couldn't touch it. Tojo couldn't reach it. American workers would bury the Axis under mountains of steel and aluminum. But then, crashes started rising. Engines failed mid-flight. Wings snapped without warning. Planes fell from clear skies during routine patrols. Good pilots, new planes, perfect weather. Still they fell. At first, commanders blamed training. Rookie pilots, not enough flight hours. Engineers blamed material stress. Combat fatigue, these planes are being pushed to their limits. No one blamed the factory floor. That was unthinkable. American manufacturing was supposed to be perfect. Untouchable, unstoppable. No one suspected the truth. The enemy was already inside. The invisible war. German intelligence knew they couldn't bomb American factories. They couldn't send Luftwaffe bombers across the Atlantic. They couldn't land paratroopers in Pennsylvania. So they did something more insidious. They slipped inside the factories themselves. Some posed as workers. Others recruited workers already on the lines. People desperate for money, people with grudges, people who could be manipulated. The Abwehr, German military intelligence, had studied American industry for years. They knew the weak points. They understood mass production. They saw the chaos of rapid expansion. The plan was brilliant in its simplicity. Small damage. Hard to see. Nothing that would be caught during standard inspection. A loose bolt here. A shaved brace there. A fuel line nicked just enough. A rivet loosened by half a turn. Nothing big enough to spot fast, but enough to fail later. High in the sky. thousands of miles from home, over enemy territory where help would never arrive. The sabotage was surgical, precise. A bomber might fly perfectly for hours, even days. Then, at altitude, under stress, with a full bomb load and a crew of 10 men trusting their lives to every rivet and weld, that's when it would fail. A wing brace would snap, a fuel line would rupture, the plane would break apart, and it would look like mechanical failure. Combat stress, bad luck. No one would suspect sabotage because the plane had already passed inspection. It had been signed off, approved, cleared for combat. How could it be sabotage if American inspectors had already checked it? That was the genius of the plan. And it was working. The woman with the pencil. Beatrice Schilling wasn't famous. She wasn't loud. She wasn't the kind of person who demanded attention or made speeches. She was a test inspector at a bomber factory in Long Island. Her job was simple. Check planes, sign papers, move on. Keep the line moving. Don't create delays. But Beatrice had grown up fixing things. Bikes, radios, anything broken. Her father had taught her to trust what her hands could feel, what her eyes could see. If something doesn't look right, he'd told her, it probably isn't right. During one routine inspection, she was checking a wing seam. Standard procedure, visual inspection. Run your hand along it. Make sure it's flush. Sign the form. Move on. But something felt off. She couldn't explain it, just a feeling. She grabbed a pencil from her pocket, just a regular pencil, nothing special, and ran it along the seam. The pencil dipped, slightly, almost imperceptibly. But it dipped. She stopped, checked the specifications. The seam should be flush, perfectly aligned, no gaps, no dips. She checked the seam again with the pencil. Same dip. She moved to another plane on the line. Same spot, same seam. She ran the pencil across it. The pencil dipped again. Then another plane, another dip. She began using the pencil on every plane she could reach. It became her ritual, her obsession. When the pencil stayed flat, she moved on. When it dipped, she marked it. She started keeping a list. Plane numbers, tail identifications, locations of the dips. Soon her list grew long, too many planes, too many dips, too many patterns that made no sense, unless someone was doing this deliberately. She reported it to her supervisor. He laughed. A pencil? That's not a real test. It's not in the manual. You're slowing down the line. He told her to stop. Production numbers were everything. Quotas had to be met. The war wouldn't wait for someone to play detective with office supplies. Beatrice didn't stop. The obsession. She started working nights, early mornings before shift started, late evenings after everyone else had gone home. She checked planes others had rushed past. She ran her pencil across seams, braces, joints. She felt for inconsistencies, and she found them, over and over. Bolts cut just short, not missing, that would be obvious, but shortened by a few millimeters, just enough to weaken the connection under stress. Braces filed thin. You couldn't see it with your eyes, but you could feel it if you knew what you were looking for. Fuel lines nicked, tiny scratches that would become cracks at altitude when the metal contracted in the cold. Rivets loosened. Not removed, that would be caught, but turned back just enough that under vibration and stress, they'd work themselves free. All small, all invisible to the naked eye during a standard inspection. All deadly at 20,000 feet with a crew of 10 men and a full bomb load. She traced patterns, same spots, same damage, same production line, over and over. It wasn't random, it wasn't coincidence, it was systematic. When she brought her evidence to management, pages of notes, plane numbers, documented patterns, the response was harsh. They banned the pencil test, officially, put it in writing. The pencil line test is not an authorized inspection procedure. It creates unnecessary delays. It spreads paranoia on the factory floor. It damages worker morale. Supervisors told her directly, "Sign off on the planes and move on. Do your job the normal way. Stop causing problems." She refused. The breaking point. They threatened her job. They moved her to different shifts. They assigned her to other parts of the factory, away from the planes. But she kept records, dates, numbers, plane tail identifications. Everything documented in a notebook she carried everywhere, hidden in her work coat. She knew what she'd found. She knew what it meant, and she knew that if she stopped, men would die. Then came the crash that changed everything. A bomber went down during a routine test flight over Long Island Sound. Not combat, not overseas. Right here, in American airspace, during a simple shakedown flight before the plane was supposed to ship out to England. Both pilots died instantly. The plane hit the water at full speed and disintegrated. The wreckage was pulled from the Sound piece by piece. Engineers tore it apart looking for the cause. They found it. A wing brace, filed thin, weakened deliberately. It had failed under stress, and the wing had folded, and the plane had gone straight into the water. Someone pulled Beatrice's reports from storage. Someone finally read them. They counted her marked planes. They reviewed her warnings. They checked her dates. 18 planes. 18 planes showed signs of the same damage, all built on the same production lines, all passed standard inspection, all signed off, all cleared for shipment to Europe. If they had gone overseas, they would have broken apart in combat. Crews would have died. 10 men per plane, 180 men, dead. For no reason except that someone had filed a brace too thin or loosened a bolt by one turn. The Army launched a quiet investigation. Counterintelligence moved in fast. They didn't announce it. They didn't want to create panic or tip off whoever was responsible. The investigation. What they found was worse than anyone had imagined. Workers with strange connections. Late-night meetings in dark corners. Tools missing, never reported. Money changing hands in bathroom stalls and parking lots. German money, hidden in lunch pails, tucked into coat pockets. The Abwehr had been more successful than anyone realized. They'd recruited workers across multiple factories. Some were German sympathizers. Some were just desperate for money. Some had been blackmailed. The plot unraveled fast once counterintelligence knew what to look for. Arrests followed. Quietly. No headlines. No press conferences. The government didn't want the public to know that enemy saboteurs had been operating inside American factories for months. Production lines shut down. Planes were stripped and rebuilt piece by piece. Every rivet checked. Every brace measured. Every weld inspected. Not just at the Long Island factory. Across the country. Every facility building bombers got the order. Halt production until every plane is re-inspected. The pencil test was no longer banned. It became standard procedure, mandatory. Inspectors were issued pencils and told to use them. Trust simple tools. Trust your eyes. Trust your instincts. Trust your doubts. If something feels wrong, it probably is wrong. One thin line of graphite had done what meetings and regulations and official procedures could not. It had caught what trained engineers had missed. It had exposed an enemy plot hiding in plain sight. The impact pilots noticed the change immediately. Crash rates dropped. Sharply. Dramatically. Planes that should have failed kept flying. Crews that should have died came home. Confidence rose. Men trusted the planes beneath them. They trusted the people who built them back home. Letters from the front spoke of that trust. Tell the folks at home we know they're building them right. These birds keep bringing us home. Beatrice never asked for praise. She never gave interviews. She never wrote a memoir or appeared at veteran reunions. She stayed at her post. She kept inspecting planes. She trained other inspectors. She taught them to slow down, to feel seams with their fingertips, to listen to what their gut was telling them, to trust that little voice that says, something's not right here. She saved lives without ever leaving the ground, without ever firing a shot, without anyone knowing her name. After the war, many stories were told, aces and their victories, battles and their heroes, big guns and bigger bombs. Few mentioned factory floors, fewer mentioned inspectors, almost none mentioned a woman with a pencil. But pilots remembered. Some wrote to her years later. Some visited the factory after the war. They thanked her for their lives, for their families, for their futures. They told her about missions they'd flown, close calls they'd survived, because the plane had held together when it shouldn't have. She listened, smiled quietly, told them she'd just been doing her job. The legacy that morning in April 1943, when Beatrice drew her pencil line and it dipped, she made a choice. She could have ignored it, signed off, moved on, kept her job safe, avoided conflict with her supervisors. Instead, she chose to trust what she saw, to trust that tiny dip, to trust her instincts over official procedures, to risk her career to save lives she would never meet. Her story is part of something bigger. America didn't just win World War II with bombs and planes and tanks. It won with people who cared. People who questioned authority when something felt wrong. People who refused to rush past danger for the sake of production numbers. From shipyards to airfields, from factories to farms, small choices added up to tremendous power. By 1944, American factories were building more planes than all Axis nations combined. Millions of workers, thousands of inspections, countless small acts of diligence and courage. Each one made the difference between life and death somewhere in the sky over Germany or the Pacific or North Africa. Here's the number that matters most: 18 planes. That's how many Beatrice stopped before they could kill anyone. Each plane carried a crew of 10 men. That's 180 lives, 180 men who went home after the war because one woman refused to look away when her pencil dipped. 180 fathers who got to meet their children. 180 husbands who got to grow old with their wives. 180 futures that existed because Beatrice Schilling trusted a pencil more than she trusted the people telling her to stop using it. The saboteurs were caught. The plot was stopped. The pencil test became standard. And somewhere in the chaos of wartime production, in the noise and rush and pressure to build faster, one woman proved that sometimes the simplest tool is the most effective. A pencil, a straight line, a willingness to trust what you see even when everyone tells you you're wrong. That's how you win a war. Not just with firepower, but with people who care enough to draw the line. Beatrice Schilling never became famous. Her name isn't in the history books. There are no monuments to her, no movies about her life. But 180 men came home because of her. Their children exist because of her. Their grandchildren are alive today because one woman in a Long Island factory refused to ignore what her pencil was telling her. The next time you hear about World War II, remember it wasn't just fought by soldiers. It was fought by factory workers, inspectors, riveters, welders, ordinary people doing extraordinary things in ways that never made headlines. Beatrice proved that you don't need a uniform to be a hero. You don't need a weapon to save lives. Sometimes all you need is a pencil, the courage to use it, and the refusal to look away when something isn't right. If this story moved you, if Beatrice Schilling's courage and refusal to back down inspired you, I need you to do 3 things right now. First, smash that subscribe button and hit the notification bell because we're uncovering more untold World War II stories like this every single week. The quiet heroes, the hidden battles, the moments that changed history without anyone knowing. Second, drop a comment and tell me, what would you have done in Beatrice's position? Would you have trusted the pencil test when everyone told you to stop? Would you have risked your job to save lives you'd never meet? I want to hear your thoughts. And third, share this video with someone who needs to hear this story. Share it with someone who's ever been told to stop asking questions, to stop rocking the boat, to just do their job and move on. because Beatrice proved that sometimes the people who refuse to stay quiet are the ones who save lives. Thanks for watching, and remember, sometimes the most powerful weapon in the world is a pencil and the courage to use it.